Yeah, I'm ready. Fine.
Hi, we're back at Bruton Knowles. We're not back at Bruton Knowles at all. We're back at Allstones, and Keith Graham has finally joined us. Hi, Keith. He's the owner of Morgan DeVere Menswear. Got two outlets, one in Gloucester and one in Cheltenham. Keith, thanks for joining Punchline Talks this morning.
Thank you. Yes, nice to join you.
Yeah, slightly late. Slightly threw me off with all these technical difficulties. What we need is to have.
Sorry about that. I didn't finish work till 11 o'clock last night.
That's all right, mate. Don't worry. We really appreciate you coming and joining us. Anyway, let's crack on with the show. We're going to review the morning newspapers. So I'll start off, first of all, with Western Daily Press. Western Daily Press, wife backs politicians accused of sex abuse. The Citizen newspaper, arrests after child injured at playgroup. The Times, tell us if a deal would drag Britain into war, PM urged. This is the pact between Australia, America and the UK. UK and US face backlash from its fears pact could provoke China, says The Guardian. The Daily Telegraph goes for Patel. Patel urges police to get tough on climate protesters. The Daily Mail, holiday joy for double jabbed. Hated travel rules are finally scrapped. Dozens of countries put on the go list. But the real story on the front page for me of the Daily Mail has to be the end of the road for 81-year-old Sir Clive Sinclair, Britain's lovable boffin. Can you remember the C5? The Sinclair C5? I remember it coming out and I thought, that will never work. Anyway, The Sun, get the Piers in. Piers Morgan's joined the Sun newspaper. Andrew is worried. This is Prince Andrew, royal exclusive for the Daily Mail. The Daily Star, I wanted to deck that gobby weather bloke, says Piers. He wanted apparently to headbutt the weather guy he had an argument with. Anyway, that's all the newspapers. We're going to kick off straight away with Simon Ford. Welcome, Simon. Simon, what have you picked out in the papers, please?
Good morning. Contrary to the normal things, I normally find a few funnies. I've got 4 or 5 bits. Daily Mail, I don't think enough has been done about this girl who won the US Open. I think that's fantastic. I think we should give her a bloody knighthood, to be honest with you, and encourage her as much as possible to go forward. I love women doing really well, and she's fantastic. I just love her to bits. The other one, let's go with something negative. BBC boss defends his anti-Brexit news chief. I hate the BBC. They are so bloody left-wing, you know, and it just sickens me when something like that comes along. Anyway, 2 in 5 British businesses are struggling to find workers. Our HR department is busy as hell, trying to replenish people that have left us. We don't have a lot of turnover of staff at all. We've had a driver out of 40 drivers now. One's leaving to go on European haulage, you know, for 2 months, you know, at a time, because it's 40-50 grand a year or something silly, because of the driver shortage. We're going to see a lot more of this. Well, every business is being affected with this.
The story that we ran yesterday was about Stagecoach. I don't know if you saw that. They can't get the buses out there. They've got enough drivers. Therefore, the young people going into work for the first time since lockdown, who've been furloughed, or new students going to colleges, they can't get on the bus. They can't get in on time. Yeah. You know, it's really unfair. You can't blame Stagecoach, but if you're standing there and on a bus stop and you're waiting there for half an hour and the bus says it's coming, it doesn't turn up, you're going to get pretty annoyed in the end, you know.
I got another local sort of one, but this is in the Times, that Superdry are opening a new store, even though they made a loss last year of 37 million and the year before of 167 million. But they are turning it around, and I don't know if that's the future or whether it's online sales, or they've got to reinvent themselves, haven't they? You know, in that sort of fashion industry, it's sort of every few years, isn't it? It's not like Skips.
And not like Skips. Well, you're trying to say the fashion industry aren't like Skips.
Well, we don't have to reinvent ourselves, do we? And the last one I picked up on is Andrew strikes back at High Court over sex case. I'm not going to sit on the fence. He's guilty of sin. End of. You know.
Allegedly. Simon,
Look, allegedly.
Simon, allegedly, he's not.
Allegedly.
He's not. I just want to say he's not here to defend himself. So,
Yeah, allegedly.
Process.
The trouble is, he's the Queen's favourite sibling, and he's been protected an awful lot. And I just think there needs to be a lot of openness and transparency with things like this, you know, and it just can't be hidden under the carpet. You know, it doesn't matter who you are or where you are, you've got to face facts. And a lot, he might not be guilty, but I'm sorry. Anyway, that's me done.
Good stuff. That is you done, maybe. You might be hearing from the lawyers. Right, moving on to Dorian. Dorian, thanks ever so much for joining us. Simon, it's all going on today.
Good morning. I'm going to be a little less controversial and political, I think, with my choices. Times. You can see that. Council splurging on property investment. We're seeing a lot of it. Across the country, they spent £6.4 billion on property investments. And that's really to prop up their shortage of income they're getting to provide core services. A lot of the councils are really under financial pressure, as we know, and they're looking at ways to prop themselves up. What's a bit quite interesting, though, is on this, within the top runners, we've got Cheltenham that have a portfolio at the moment of 73.9 million with 13.5 million to invest. And then Gloucester up there as well, with a portfolio of nearly 60 million and 13.2 million pounds in the bank to invest. So, you know, there's some real capital out there to invest in it. They've got some great projects coming forward. They've got the Forum scheme, the Cyber Park, and it's good to see them spending money and getting some money into the coffers. So that's good news, I think.
Well, I know that you work in commercial property, but one thing that always worries me, and I'll bring Keith in later on about this, is that, you know, is there a coherent plan between Eastgate Shopping Centre and Kingswalk Shopping Centre, you know, to actually run these things, you know, because let's be honest, they're council owned, they're council operated. And what do councils know about shopping centres? I mean, not being funny, Julian Duckerton can't make retail work. How can a council make it work? So what's going on in retail, mate?
It's true. I mean, retail, as we all know, we all taught this thing to death, has gone through a massive change because, as Simon said, it's not like Skips. It does change a lot. And it's going through that sort of, I think almost the birthing pains of a new business model. But Reef get that, the council get that. They are getting specialists on board, you know, guys like ourselves and a few other guys. And so it will be a cohesive plan. It needs to be joined up, and not just also within Gloucester. We need to join up the whole you know, Cheltenham, Gloucester, the whole area. So there are lots of people working behind the scenes to make it work. Okay, I'm really positive about it.
And what about the commercial properties? No, actually, I want to talk about commercial property at the moment. Anything else in the newspapers that you noticed?
Yes, a couple of things, very quickly. Really interesting article. Well, I think it's interesting. Energy prices going up, predominantly at the moment due to gas supplies coming in the country that's stopping factories up north producing fertilizer. In its own, you know, the average person, not a huge issue, but that will affect farmers, that will affect crop prices. That will also inadvertently, a byproduct of fertilizer production is carbon dioxide. That goes into soft drinks and a number of other industries. So there is this knock-on effect. And for me, it's just, again, that flag about our own energy security. Should we be looking at more renewables, sustainability? And it's not a planning issue. It's getting landlords to buy into it and getting surveyors, our industry, to really engage with it and not just give this thing lip service, really push it forward, retrofit solar panels, energy saving measures. And, you know, the only controversial thing I will say is whether we need to look at our onshore gas policy and whether we know we've got big oil gas reserves under South Wales. Should we be tapping into those to give cheap gas to Talbot Steelworks and create jobs in an area that's really struggling? And just have this, as we're transitioning away from fossil fuels, we need a dose of reality, maybe.
No, that's fantastic. Thanks so much, Dorian. Right, Vikki, what have you chosen for us? Hi there. What have you chosen for us today?
Okay, well, you know me, I'll always bring it down a level. So mine was Clive Sinclair, and it was kind of, I mean, growing up with the ZX Spectrum, do you know what I mean? The computer, wasn't it? And kids don't know what we're talking about when we talk about ZX Spectrum. But what I found really interesting reading the piece was that he never had a calculator. He used a slide rule. And he never used a computer or email.
What, himself?
And, yeah, no. And
But
he was kind of pioneering this kind of like the home computer kind of sector, yet it wasn't something that he used himself, which I thought was really, really interesting.
Didn't he actually invent the calculator?
Yeah. And it's kind of, but Jet Set Willy was my favourite computer game of all time.
I don't know what you're talking about now. I just heard the word
You
Willy.
don't remember? Does anybody remember Jet Set Willy on the ZX Spectrum?
I'm not old enough. I'm not old enough.
I'm hoping somebody out there will remember Jet Set Willy. It was,
I just remember the Sinclair C5 little.
And how that failed. Yeah, and how that kind of like shows that, you know, kind of like you have a great idea, but it doesn't mean you can kind of like branch out something around, you know, stay good at what you're good at. Do you know what I mean?
But I always remember seeing it on Blue Peter, and there was this guy sort of cycling on this little tricycle thing, little box, and then a lorry went past him, and even I thought, no way would I get in that. That is just a coffin on wheels, you know.
I remember that program, but no, I think that it was really kind of I suppose how much over the last year we've relied on technology and how far we've come, and you know, what would we have done over this last year if we hadn't had the kind of technology. And I think that you know, kind of there is a problem as well around kind of IT and IT poverty. So you know, not everybody has access to computers, to data, and I mean, is it becoming as essential as maths and English, ICT skills? You know what I mean? We're in that kind of really digital age, aren't we? And it's kind of interesting. We've gone from that kind of massive, and I remember the first computer that we had in the office, and this massive thing stood in the corner operating it. Does anybody remember that? This thing as big as a wardrobe in the corner, kind of like So so that was kind of me. And the other one that I kind of picked out was I'm sat on a panel of all men. Was that an employment tribunal judge said yesterday that calling someone mate or lad is not a pet name but a nickname, but calling women chick, babes, hun and sweetie are demeaning. And I just wondered what you guys kind of like thought. I mean, personally, I don't get upset about it, but I know that some people do. And I just wondered if it's kind of stuff that you guys...
Okay, I'll ask us back to you then. I have women that call me hun, you know, I'm in a shop or something, they say, hey, honey, or they don't call me babes. That'd be a bit weird.
You've been called a lot worse.
I've been called a lot worse. I normally say, hey, you, stop, come back with that stuff. No, but seriously, Vikki, there are women that do the same with men. I don't mind. I think it's very confusing. You know, do I open the door for a woman now? Do I give her my chair if a bus, the train is loaded? Is that sexist now? Or I think the men don't know anymore.
I mean, this was specifically around the workplace and kind of like, you know, language within the workplace.
I think you're talking to the wrong age group, because certainly I've got two sons in the business, and they've grown up with this sort of inclusivity sort of way of doing things, and sort of our HR also sort of endorses all of this. I had an email from the BBC asking me for an interview the other day, and the guy put him stroke he after it, and I actually got offended by that. I actually thought, well, what is wrong with him? You know, why does he have to do that? You know, and I rang him up and asked him, and he said, oh, it's all to do with inclusivity, and we can't do this and we can't do that. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't do the interview. I just said, no, I'm not doing it.
Fair play.
I just got offended by it. You know, I just thought, well, the world's going mad, and how far do we have to go? You know, they're trying to tear the Churchill bloody statues down in London, you know, and all sorts of stuff. When it gets so far on the left-hand side of things, it becomes, you know, not a nice place to live.
Well,
you know,
that's a bit like, can you imagine being a comedian nowadays? All the things you can't say, all the jokes. You know, when we do Punchline, all the you know, all the jokes that pass over my desk, I go, nope, can't say that. Nope, Irishman, can't say that. Right, moving on. Let's Keith, let's bring you into the conversation. Thanks ever so much for joining us, Keith. What have you picked out? Did you get a chance to get any papers, Keith?
I have, but I think the papers today, there's a lot of situation with the pact that they've just made with Australia, the French are getting upset and all of that type of thing. I think the world, just as your other panelists are saying, is going mad with the way they deal with everything at the moment. But what I'd really like to talk about is the way which you touched on with your panelists from Bruton Knowles, is just the way that the councils are getting involved in all of this commercial property activity, because I don't share his view that they've got the expertise within the council. They say they're going to bring in the expertise, but if you look at the way the Eastgate Shopping Centre run, there's two separate managements running it. The rents are very, very high. The charges are even more eye-watering, and you're trying to encourage retail trade. Well, the retailers who potentially would take those properties can't make enough money to make them work. And I think you've got to have a rethink completely about the way the council are getting involved with all of this. You haven't even got decent broadband in the middle of Gloucester, which is fundamental these days to running any decent business.
Well, let's talk about your own business then. Let's talk about your own business then, Keith. If you just want to explain about what you do and the situation that you're finding yourself in quickly.
Well, we are a specialist menswear shop where we try to give a personal service for people, particularly buying suits for special occasions, weddings. That we're having a great deal of difficulty, as your previous panelists were saying, about recruiting decent staff. It's impossible practically to find anybody that wants to take a job. We're having major problems at the moment with supplies because they're not coming in. So even if you've got customers for the products that you want, we've got very intermittent supply coming in because of the container problems from the Far East. I mean, one of my best suppliers at the moment is having to airship their clothes into the UK. We've had 4 increases in prices since the 12th of April when we reopened. So a suit that I was Christmas of 2018 for just under £200 is now nearly £300, which is making it very, very expensive if you've got 6 or 7 people wanting to buy them for their weddings. It's just very, very difficult at the moment. And the other thing I want to know is what the government going to do about business rates for next year. I've written to my local MP asking him, because I'm trying to plan for next year, and he tells me he has no idea what the government's plans are. We've had reasonable support through the pandemic. However, and this year we've had very, very good support on business rates, where we got the first 3 months with 66% reduction for the last 9 months of the year. But we haven't a clue what the government are going to do for next year with it. It's a very unfair playing field with internet. People are shopping more and more on the internet because they've been locked down for 15 months. Therefore, they've got even more used to buying online. Yet they want the personal service. But if we can't provide this service at a price they can afford within the retail environment, they will close. And there's still more shops closing than there are reopening. And if we come back to the full charges next year, I think you'll see a lot more. I mean, Gloucester's got an awful lot of empty shops. You're seeing many empty shops in the promenade in Cheltenham now where you could never find anywhere. I think it just needs somebody to grasp this nettle and deal with it properly.
Now, the big thing also, Keith, we've talked about it before, is actually customers' expectations. I've talked to Simon about this and other people who deal with the general public. We're very fortunate, Dorian and myself, most of the time, and we, and Vikki deals with the public as well, we deal with commercial business to business 99% of the time. So Keith, I mean, expectations, you have to measure suits, make suits. They want it now, don't they?
Yes, well, and customers like that service. I mean, if you take myself, last evening I did a party of 8 people for suits. I did that at 6:30 last night. They're not going to get that from online. And I actually left my premises in Cheltenham last night at 9 o'clock at night after measuring all of these guys, fitting them in there, them up where any adjustments were made and that sort of stuff. So we want to give the service, but we've got to be able to do it within an environment where at the end of the day we make a profit. We can't do that with the unfair playing field at the moment. If we come back to full cost next year, it's not just going to be possible.
Well, it's very interesting what you said about the price of suits going on as well. I'm going to quickly go over to Simon, because not being funny, the half hour is running away with us already. Simon, talking to Phil McCormack yesterday from Nick's Timber, he was saying that the price of timber has doubled within a couple of months. Are you finding the same for you guys, obviously, with your skips and what you're buying in?
Cement, aggregates, the disposal costs, we send our residual waste to energy. Everything has gone up, wages, drivers, the whole lot, and we haven't put our prices up yet. We've had a few meetings about price increases, but again, you're concerned about losing market share. You know, if you outprice it, because there's always going to be somebody who's going to be stupid and do it cheaper. But we're a service-led company, and I like to think that a lot of our customers stick with us because we're very good at what we do. Just going up back, you know, I've always thought that the government should step in and abolish stamp duty, abolish inheritance tax, look at business rates and things like that, because they need to stimulate the economy and make everybody make money, because that's the only way they get a lot more tax then, you know. But they just don't seem to get it. They're always trying to please somebody. You know, and that isn't going to work. We are at a stage now where this quarter, going into Christmas and more Q1 next year, we're going to have a lot of problems. A lot of businesses are going to go bust. You've got furlough finishing, and you've got these COVID loans now have got to be paid back. So you're going to start to see it now.
Yeah,
I think the picture of what's happened is going to happen now. You know.
Thanks, Simon. And that is actually a very nice link over to Dorian, because obviously Dorian works within the commercial property sector as well. And you know, what Simon's saying there is this what you're finding as well, Dorian? I know you guys all trying to big it up. You know, are people going back to the office? I mean, that's your job, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Well, no, I think that's the sort of the traditional agent's view. I think I'd like to think we're a bit smarter than that. Our whole job is understanding businesses, our clients' businesses and their tenants. It's only by sitting down and talking to tenants we can understand the pressures on them and then come up with strategies that work. So we tend to get quite ingrained in portfolios, but exactly right. What Keith is saying, exactly right on the retail side. There are some huge pressures on that. How they're going to be resolved, I mean, it needs to be really joined up. But what we are seeing, you mentioned Cheltenham, the Promenade in Cheltenham, a lot of those shops are now under offer because landlords have suddenly started to realise they need proper advice. There is a rebooting or a re-establishment of market principles, and they're beginning a dialogue. Now, how close they are to getting a deal done, I don't know, but those conversations are happening. Retailers are coming back on, and it's retailers like yourself, Keith. They are local retailers who are experts in what they do. They provide great service, and that's what's going to kick the high street back again. Because people, you know, if I'm buying a suit, I want to go and see someone who knows how to build a suit, knows how to measure it, provides good quality, and that's what people want now. So I think that is going to be there. Broadband, is an issue. There's lots of things happening around broadband, as you know, around the city. Lots of solutions coming forward. So that will be solved. Eastgate Shopping Centre will be sorted out. It's a big project. There's lots of moving parts, but it's beginning to chunk in. It's just taking time for the market to readjust, and that's what's happening. Business rates, no one knows what's happening with business rates. The system has to change. It's unfair. It's what they do with it. I thought it was interesting that the government kicked forward or extended the curb on landlords' powers to take action against defaulting tenants, really as against giving another holiday on business rates. They're really kicking it back onto landlords, so they're shouldering the burden of their policies. But that can't go on forever. You know, there's no protection for landlords with banks. They have to pay their mortgages. That needs to be addressed at some stage. So there's lots of moving parts. The only way it can be done is people talking to each other, really.
No, I think that's fantastic.
I'll come off my soapbox now.
No, rightly so. No, thank you very much for that, Dorian. I'm going to go quickly over to Vikki. We are running out of time. Vikki, I mean, you deal with getting people with disabilities into work. We're talking about there are lots of jobs going. You know, is that helping the people that you try and help, or is it really difficult out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's not just disability. I mean, we have a completely what we call inclusive employment kind of agenda. So that's young people who are not in education, employment, and training, young people who've left care, people with disabilities, and there's a whole range of different people that we work with. So yeah, I mean, we are getting people into jobs. One of our problems is around, so we've got also Gateway for the Kickstart scheme, which is aimed at young people. I think some of the problems that we hit are employers' expectations. And that's part of the problem that we see, is that employers want people, not every employer, but certain employers want people to come in who can do this, and they're not willing to kind of spend that time kind of helping to kind of train people. So that's where we come in. And obviously that's a conversation that we want with employers is to kind of, there is a market, there's lots and lots of people out there who want jobs. And we found that with Kickstart. I mean, Kickstart is supposed to be a scheme that is, gets a young person in and teaches them what the world of work's about. It's about, increasing capacity so that young person kind of learns what happens in work, turning up on time, dressing appropriately, behaviours, that type of thing. Yet we were having employers coming to us saying, we want a graduate, we want them to do this, we want them to hit the ground running, we want them to have experience in marketing. And we kind of like going, hang on, this is for a young person. Young people do not have this, and it's not supposed to be a scheme that is paying, is a kind of, I suppose, a kind of wage replacement scheme. It's about training a person.
But Vikki, not being funny, if you're an employer, I know some of the money is paid, you do expect the basics. You do expect people to be able to pick up the phone and be able to communicate. You do expect them to turn up on time. Is that's not a real expectation.
But Mark, how do you learn that? How do you learn that? That goes back to my original thing. How do you learn work skills? You learn work skills from being in the workplace. You can't teach how to be in work at college. This is why we want young people, sorry, this is Roddy. This is why kind of I think it's crucial that we work with young people to get them to do things like work bars, get that job when they're still at 18 years old, so that they start to learn those work skills at an early age. So a lot of the work that we're doing is to put in place kind of work placement schemes. So while they're at college, while they're in school, they can spend one day a week out in a workplace learning those work skills, and that's really, really important. And that's some of the work that we're kind of like doing. But I think that there is that kind of. Don't forget, half of these kids haven't been at school for 18 months. We've had 18 months of disruption as well.
I'm going to play devil's advocate, because we had this problem beforehand. You can't just blame COVID. We had a problem. If you're me, I've taken on 30 young people over the years, and and it takes a lot of time, a lot of investment, a lot of love. Well, businesses are operating with fewer people, with tighter margins. We don't have that time anymore. We do need the people to get up and running. That's what I thought the Kickstarter.
I think it's also, sorry to intrude, but I think it's also a sort of generational thing. I was taught how to work at 8 to 10 years of age, picking stones up in a field. Both my parents were extremely hard-working, physical grafters, and they taught you how to work. On my generation doesn't teach our kids how to do that now. The Eastern Europeans do, and they're coming in here and have been for the last 15 years with a very, very strong work ethic, and that's why they've got all the labouring jobs and everything else. I employ graduates, I employ everybody, every sector of the society I employ. And we train and we try our best. But our experience has been that the young UK people don't have any work in them. They don't want to work. They don't turn up on time. I try and teach them how to use a brush. They don't even know the skills of using a brush. And you try and teach them to do that, or a shovel. It's very difficult, They don't.
Let's bring Keith, and we'll bring in Dorian. Sorry.
Yeah, I agree entirely with what Simon says. I mean, a lot of the young people don't want to work. I mean, just basic, like you said, turning up to work on time. They'll ring you and let you know in at about 4:30 on Tuesday, and it's for the next morning. And this type of thing, I agree. I employ now nearly all foreign workers, particularly Polish, and their work ethic is 100 times better. They work on time. You don't have to ask them to do something. They'll use their initiative. I mean, I've taken on quite a lot of young English workers, and crikey, they'll rather flop down in the chair and do nothing rather than get on and brush the floor or tidy the clothes up or anything else. You have to be constantly asking them to do it. And and this is a big problem. I started work when went to Tommy Rich's. I started part-time job at 15 in Northgate Street, and you got on and did the work. I was 26 when I gave up my Saturday job, and I'd already been married for 4 years. This is the problem. The young people these days young English workers don't want to work. Okay, well, many of them.
Let's bring in Dorian quickly, and then sorry, Vikki, we started to put a cat amongst pigeons, really. But Dorian,
yeah, my experience is different. I mean, I've brought in a policy to employ apprentices rather than graduates. I think the property world is full of these, graduate white middle class individuals, and we've moved very purposefully away from that. I've got 2 apprentices that work for me who are brilliant. Joined me straight from school. The first one is just about to graduate. He's got a 2-1 from Reading, and he is operating at a level far beyond his age because he's got a great work ethic. The other one, Phoebe, joined me this year. I mean, talk about baptism of fire into a very difficult industry, and she's brilliant. She's up and running. She's talking to clients. So my experience, I don't doubt what you're saying, and I've seen it and I've heard anecdotal evidence of all the things you're saying. My experience has been different, and I've got to say I'm really impressed with the apprentices, and I'll be employing more of them without doubt.
Well, we've got 2 working for me, and they've been with me 3 years, 4 years, and I can't fault them. In fact, they are absolutely fantastic, and all the ones that we've had have gone on as well. So there's nothing I say. Vikki, I'm sorry we've kind of, you've got a TV, you've got a TV thing you want to plug, isn't it?
Yeah, I was just going to say, look, if we want, I mean, we have lots of different staff that we're lots of different people that we're working with. So, contact us, and apprenticeships are fantastic, and I would really kind of advocate for that. I just want to promote something. On Wednesday, 22nd, we've partnered with, we were asked to partner with CTEC Plus, who are the provider for the DWP programs in the county. We've got a stream, a work, wellbeing and feel good event. So lots and lots of different things on there. We've got Andrew Lewis, MBE, who's Paralympian, telling his inspiring story. We've got a couple of our Kickstarters interviewing Pete Bungard, Mark Hawthorne. We've got cookery. We've got wellbeing stuff. We've got information about some of the services we've run. This is 4 hours, absolutely jam-packed, 4 hours of lots and lots of different things, really trying to showcase what is fantastic about Gloucestershire and our kind of work and wellbeing services. So tune in.
Thank you very much. For 4 hours.
4 hours. Yeah,
okay,
partly live streamed at Young Gloucestershire. Let me give a shout out for Young Gloucestershire. We're going to be live from Young Gloucestershire offices on the docks as well, but lots of information about apprenticeships and all that as well.
Okay, no, thank you very much, Vikki. Okay, let's quickly run through something that you picked out from, stories you picked out from this week's Punchline. Dorian, I'll start with you, then Simon, then over to Keith, and finish off with Vikki. Dorian, what have you got?
Yeah, I think you ran it yesterday, Mark. A great story. I'm sticking with the property theme. The growth of independent stores that are moving into the gaps in the high street. We're seeing much more of it now. We're seeing this regeneration of retail. Lots of things going on. They're empty shops, but they are filling. And you look at things like Coronation Square in Cheltenham, that's full now for the first time in decades. We've managed to get that sorted out. And there's just this resurgence, and it's coming through. It is strong. And we just need people to keep shopping locally, use local suppliers, and support the local economies. But it's a great story, and we're seeing that mirrored across the country.
Thanks very much. Simon, this week's Punch.
Just a quick one. Sorry, I'm going to intrude again. We have employed a young lady, and I love employing young ladies who can progress through the business, who has no formal education and is now gone on a course to an MBA, and she'll get it and she'll do it. And I'll be so proud of her. you know, so that's one. This is a bit insular, really, in that this was the graffiti. I don't know if you can see it. That was.
Are you still plugging this story?
It was sprayed on our. Well, you covered it, for God's sake. Yeah, we still haven't found out the truth of it all, but there you go.
So it's a
rat in a recycling wheel. Yeah.
The Banksy.
Yeah.
Keith, what have you picked out this week's bunch?
Yeah, well, I agree with your first speaker there about you're doing the article on the retail resurgence, still, and I don't share the optimism of your Mr. Ford. I just think we've got to keep pressing the government to give support to this area, and then perhaps we will. When he talks about the resurgence, it's a lot of the smaller shops that are being filled up. All the bigger ones down the bottom end of the promenade aren't being filled up, and companies are moving out of the bigger stores into smaller stores because they're trying to reduce all their overheads, and so it just needs a lot of pressure on the government and the local authorities to actually decide 100% to support their local area and to get this vibrancy. But it can't be full of just coffee shops, or there is got to have a spread of all different types of retailers, because that's the high street. It's not just one particular area.
Okay, thanks, Keith. Vikki, what have we got for this week's punchline?
Well, I'm going to pick up on the skills bit that you do. So the apprenticeship careers, yeah, lots of different jobs on there. Really, lots of just a real kind of, you've got everything from CEO to a support worker. So
thank you very much. It's a section that we work really hard. We're growing on it, and we get some great feedback from it. So thank you ever so much for highlighting.
So you can pay me later. I'll
pay you later. Okay, the stories I've picked out for this week's punchline is there's been quite a few, but it seems that I spent a lot of time at the Keys this week. The big story there was the June retail store was open, fantastic, great brand. Unfortunately, the Gap, which was an anchor store when it opened nearly over 10 years ago, that is closing this weekend. Stagecoach buses still having trouble, can't get the buses, can't get the drivers. Dale Vince, the headline that really caught my eye, worth 100 million, but not interested in money. I love your work. And the boost of independence, I also had that one as well. That's the end of this week's version of Punchline Talks. Thanks ever so much to my fantastic panel, and we'll see you all very soon. Cheerio.